We're the ones that worship Mother Nature.
Okay. Let's do this.
Since you are a visiting professor at
I am from Detroit.
From Detroit?
Yeah, from the University of Detroit. Of all places.
You were on sabbatical?
In a sense, yes.
In a sense.
Not defending the trade unions of Germany because he wasn't in the union movement of Germany, and not defending the Jews because he wasn't a Jew, and the homosexuals because he wasn't homosexual. And finally, you know, he ended up as Dachau too. But the salami tactics had worked for Hitler to capture in a decade. It took Hitler a good decade to pull it off. Total consolidation. Remember, he started in the 20s with a couple failures. So don't write Pat Buchanan off too early, friends.
Started with the feminists.
He'd been at it 30 years from the time of Dick Nixon, and I know where he's coming from because I came out of the 50s as an Irish Catholic, just like Pat. And I invited Pat down here tonight. I said, Pat, you get your other pal, Pat Robertson, you get on the nearest bus over the hill to Santa Cruz and come on down. So if you see him pop in here, I'll have to stand by and give him a little equal time in case I make any incorrect remarks about him here tonight that need to be corrected about. Becky, I hope we can capture his arrival.
Yeah, we're ready for him to be
arrived. He's in California. This much we know. He's in California. We know he's not on Radio Free. We know he's not being interviewed there. That much we know. Otherwise, we don't know where the guy is. He's campaigning for president. He wants to be your president. He wants to take care of you and some of your problems.
Watch this be boring, yeah.
Yes. There's hope as a town that is special in California. And then King died in Memphis, backing labor, backing the sanitation workers and city workers of Memphis, where he was assassinated. It's those kind of collaborative cross-networking activities that build strong movements and give momentum to important causes. And we'll maybe talk more about what it would take to make Santa Cruz more potent as a town that is special in California and special in America. Most of you know that Santa Cruz is a special town in California and a special place in America. Along with Berkeley, Santa Cruz is one of those places that still has radical activists, grassroots. It makes a difference if people watch Santa Cruz. So we can be kind of like a lighthouse for California. It clicks for you, something that you feel personally comfortable with. You can ignore the things that don't click with you, you're not personally comfortable. And there are probably another dozen things that you could think of equally worthwhile to expand on this list. And then, of course, if we could find ways for people to do what I call cross-networking, where people could help each other's causes a little bit, that would go a long way. To build the kind of coalitions that were great in the 60s, Civil Rights Coalition, where Walter P. Reuther, the former UAW president, marched in Selma with Martin Luther King. Labor backed civil rights. And then King died in Memphis backing labor, backing the sanitation workers and city workers of Memphis, where he was assassinated. It's those kind of collaborative cross-networking activities that build strong movements and give momentum to important causes. And we'll maybe talk more about what it would take to make Santa Cruz more potent as a town that is special in California and special in America. Most of you know that Santa Cruz is a special town in California and a special place in America. Along with Berkeley, Santa Cruz is one of those places that still has radical activists, grassroots. It makes a difference if people watch Santa Cruz. So we can be kind of like a lighthouse for California. For the bombing, we don't want to see terrorism and death and violence in our neighborhoods and in our cities. Like in Billings, Montana, to disarm the opponent, in quotes, why don't we try to look at things more in the negotiations approach? Anything we get to bring a little more compromise buys time for the progressive community to organize. We need a lot of time to organize, get back on our feet. These people have been working at this 30 years. Some could trace it to the John Birch Society in the 50s. They've been working on repealing the civil rights and labor causes from the New Deal to the Kennedy era. They've been working on eliminating that Great Society, the LBJ. They've been working at undercutting what they think of as the left, certainly rejecting socialism and every other kind of progressive reform dreamed up in the 20th century from Europe or America, rejecting labor, rejecting the ethos of liberalism and pluralism and democracy and fair play. And they've decided they have a crusade, God-ordained crusade. They have that momentum. So anything we can do to blow the whistle, get a ceasefire or a truce, begin negotiating, even trying to find our common ground, even if it's shaky, will help us buy 10 years. We need 5 to 10 years just to get enough muscle to take on the global corporate dominance of the human race. Ralph Nader's talking about that, how to get a grip on the real power behind the throne, and it isn't the Christian right or Republicans, it's the corporate world dominance. But to go after that, effectively, it'll take a good deal of percolating at the alliance. It'll take getting Ed Fry in Congress. It'll take having a Green Party in all 50 states, with maybe the makings of a replacement for the Democratic Party over a 5 or 10 year period. So, in the short run, I do think anything we can do to be highly inclusive and hold the center and work with the moderate to liberal churches to hold the center is working like a little Dutch boy putting his thumb in the dike just to prevent the flood from coming through. Then when we can come up with a better dike and a different way to get the flow of history moving again, you know, like after a storm, get the river to flow in its evolutionary pattern, hopefully onward and upward to a more humane human race, then I think, you know, we'll live out the rest of our lifetimes as agents of human evolution from a positive, humanistic, hopeful, and ultimately brave and trusting perspective. So I just wanted to kind of come forward a little bit of optimism here with a lot of very practical ideas, as nearly as I can get practical, and then hand out a few things and open the floor. The best column on the Buchanan GOP crusade to save us from ourselves. And do you want to hand one of those out there, please? Again,
Why are you supporting Buchanan?
I thought that we had the basis in Santa Cruz with so many good community groups and community activists. I thought we had the basis of holding a teach-in like they're doing Sunday to end the drug war, but to have a teach-in, a day-long teach-in in Loudon Nelson, maybe the first part of June, where we could bring a dozen groups and a dozen causes into Loudon Nelson for a day. Each topic having a classroom and have concurrent workshops. So as to bring labor together, women's movement together, homeless together, medical marijuana in, nuclear, environmental, the Greens, Greenpeace, Food Not Bombs, and to get the 9 or 12 groups that some of you know in town just to be together over a nice lunchtime meal, picnic, an evening party, with an afternoon of breakouts or small workshops that will allow people to find ways to collaborate and work together, at least not to get in each other's way or unduly attack and snipe at each other, and possibly find ways to become better friends and start cooperating and maybe, as a byproduct of that, find ways they can do joint activities. Find ways that issues can be bled over together, like environmental racism. That touches race and environment. I'd like to see the ACLU be far more active here. Their county chapter seemingly has not addressed the issue of the war on drugs, even though their formal positions for decriminalization of drugs William Buckley's National Review has gotten more attention on that lately than the American Civil Liberties Union. It shouldn't be the case. The American Civil Liberties Union chapter here should want to take some leadership and not leave it solely to grassroots people. This is a community take it where we take for those restless. I thought that would be useful.
I think it was sitting right there.
I was listening to the radio before I came in, and it was John Laird interviewing Dr. Stam and why he's supporting Buchanan. I hated to come in, and I think you'd only hear that in Santa Cruz.
That's right. John Laird's the interviewer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Figure out what's wrong with the way our government works, and for years and years and years, butting my head up against judges that don't seem to want to honor the principles of the Constitution. And I've come to the conclusion long ago that the real power in this whole government is not the government itself. We have really a private government. It's run for the interests of the people who run the largest multilateral, multinational corporation. And that includes our legal system as well as our political system. It includes the Congress, it includes the White House, and it includes the judiciary. Most of our judges these days are either former prosecutors or they are corporate, chosen by the corporate interests. And so when we do take our cases to court and arguing our constitutional principles, we run up against brick walls. There's no hope for a just cause. I'm representing a man now who's a quadriplegic who uses marijuana to control the spasms that he has as a result of the quadriplegia. And if he can't control those spasms, he could die. He almost did die when he was deprived of his medicine. And the California Constitution has this very clear provision, Article 1, Section 1 says this person, every person has the inalienable right to privacy and the right to safety, right in the California Constitution. Two provisions that are not in the federal Constitution. So we've taken that to court. Take it to the court right here, the Superior Court. And the judge wouldn't even hear it. Oh, no. Those rights are nice and all, but you have to write your legislator. You can take it to the legislature. Or maybe a higher court can do it. But I certainly, I'm just only one of 800 Superior Court judges in California. In other words, the Constitution doesn't apply in these courts. And they're afraid to apply it. Even though the right to safety, for my client, the right to safety means the right to get his medicine, the best possible medicine according to his own medical doctor, who's a Stanford medical professor, is marijuana. It controls, he's able to control his spasms and control the dosage very well. And all the other antispasmodics put him in a coma or near coma, leave him in a vegetative kind of state. Marijuana leaves him with a clear head and in full control of the spasms. But do you think that our government or our governor or our legislators, well, our legislators have been pretty good on this one in California. They did pass laws twice in a row, 2 years in a row, that would have allowed him to take marijuana as his medicine. But the governor vetoed it. But anyway, I'm a little bit off the subject, but that's really how I got into studying the sources of our government power, is by trying to confront this marijuana issue, because it is such a destructive thing. If you've seen the display downstairs on the drug war, you get a good flavor for the oppressive nature of the drug war, if you haven't had that already in your life experience. But the reason why I'm running for Congress is because I think that we all have to challenge the corporate powers, the private money that controls all of our lives in such subtle ways. Becky and I were just talking downstairs about one of the subtle, to some people, subtle ways of controlling us is for the media to make it look as if, wow, there's a real contest on, Dole versus Clinton. Really, they're two peas in a pod. I mean, because it doesn't matter to the media who wins, because either way, they're fine. When I say the media, General Electric, right? Rupert Murdoch.
DuPont.
Well, all the multinational corporations that control the media. So they're fine as long as either Dole or Clinton wins. And as far as I can tell, President Clinton's central accomplishment in the last 3.5 years since he's been in office is to protect the position of the health insurance industry. Because there was a groundswell nationwide for something to be done in a meaningful way about our health care. And what we've got is now much worse than what we had when Clinton started.
Yep, right.
And Clinton goes to Jackson Hole periodically and meets with the CEOs of the insurance industry, the health insurance industry. And there he gets his marching orders, which is save our game, Bill, and we'll put you back in the White House. And that's exactly what's happening. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, Clinton's the guy's going to save us from the Republicans," but Clinton is a Republican himself, as far as I'm concerned. He's protecting the vital interests of the media and the corporations. And Ralph Nader is our only real hope, as far as I can see. And Ralph Nader is on the ballot, and he can be written in if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You can write in Ralph Nader instead of Clinton.
What if you were registered in, I think I registered unclaimed or what's it?
Independent.
No.
You can still write
That's one. Thank you.
You can still write him in. Write him in.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
And his candidacy gives legitimacy to other candidacies like mine, independent. He's fighting the battle. He's been fighting it much longer than I have, obviously. He's been, for the last 30 years, running, litigating against corporations. And he's come to the conclusion that litigating them against corporations isn't where it's at. It's the political game is the real forum where we're going to overcome this power.
You feel that the campaign finance reform is the root of the failure of our democracy. We simply are electing people who are married to large corporate interests. And
Yeah, that's the mechanism.
Yeah.
That's the mechanism by which they retain control.
Yeah.
Is hundreds of thousands of dollars come out of every corporation. It gets turned into soft money on the national scale. And then it's filtered down to the Congress, congressional, senatorial candidates and so on. And they don't get that money for free. They have to give the favors back in exchange. It seems to me that a really singular reform that we could put in place is to require all broadcasters, all license holders, to have public debates on the airwaves. And I know a lot of people, and I think a couple of people, at least in this room, are saying, "Well, gee, if Ed Fry runs for Congress, that's going to ruin Sam Farr's career." Because Sam Farr is a great, a liberal Democrat. Sam Farr voted for prisons. His last year in the state legislature, Sam Farr voted for 3 new prison building projects. $1 billion. Here's our great education hero, Sam Farr, voting for prisons. Why did he vote for prisons? He got $25,000 in campaign contributions from the prison guards union that year.
Yeah, they're very hard.
But the liberals in this town want to say, "Oh, it's okay, Sam's a good guy. He's really a nice guy." Nice guys don't say, "Yes, I'm going to vote against NAFTA," and then get elected and then vote for NAFTA. Nice guys don't do that. Nice guys don't build prisons instead of schools. Nice guys don't issue press releases that say we ought to extend the deadline on methyl bromide. Back in August, Sam Farr, August the 1st. We've got to protect agribusiness interests. They're going to lose money, these strawberry growers, because he's getting a lot of money from agribusiness. Now he's had to change course on that, too. He's flip-flopping on all the major issues. So if you want Sam Farr re-elected, then we're going to be in trouble. It would be better for this county and this district to have a Republican in there who could get knocked off next time by Bill Monty, a true Democrat, than to have Sam Farr continue on with his backstabbing ways. He's just he has no spine. He will do exactly as Leon Panetta and the White House tell him to do. And that's exactly what he's been doing ever since he stepped into Congress. So I could go on and on, but I'm not going to take up the whole meeting. I appreciate your listening. Yes.
What is the job of a congressman?
A congressman, well, to legislate federal laws.
So they make laws.
Oh yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah.
Do we need more laws?
I know, we need fewer laws.
Well, then how come we have people having elections for people that make more laws? Why don't we just stop having Congress people? You know?
Change the Constitution. You gotta change the
Okay.
Constitution.
We don't need any more laws. I'm trying to figure it out, yeah.
And it would be, I've often tinkered with this, it's probably futile, and this is just the mind of a professor working probably overheated here, but wouldn't it be nice if we could create some kind of master dialogue to minimize some of the intrusion into personal liberty? If we could, even that anti-terrorism bill was gutted by an alliance, a peculiar alliance, gutted the anti-terrorism bill, and both Newt Gingrich and Clinton supported the bill, but they lost. Newt Gingrich and Clinton aligned in agreement on the anti-terrorism bill, but some of the kind of militia-type Republican parties, people that don't want the guns regulated by any means, register my gun, don't do that. They aligned with civil liberties people who said we don't want a police state out of this. So whatever we can do, we may have to form pretty pragmatic alliances to block censorship of the internet or to stop the invasion of our rights and freedoms, whatever we have left. To curb that requires almost desperate measures now. And so we might have to form very imaginative propositions in the future. Short amount of time, so we can get everybody up.
I'm fine. The unemployed. The unemployed must be in the tens of millions in our nation. The reason I bring that up is that the people who are homeless are the marginal workers of America, forced out of their jobs by more proficient workers who have degrees and are working in jobs under their competence. You understand? We know that to be true. People doing busboy jobs who could be doing teaching, working as fry cooks, and they force the people who would be working as busboys, as bus workers in restaurants, as janitors, as custodial workers, as these marginal workers.
Now a lot of jobs are going into prison too.
Right.
Now they're 30 cents an hour.
Now they're gearing it up to make our prisons an employment opportunity. Why I want to mention that has to do, one, with the sleep out that's going on across the street at City Hall. There are a number of people, sleep deprivation ordinance that they have in the city. The sleep deprivation ordinance that the city has in effect, and the downtown ordinances, which are in effect class war ordinances. They're class oriented because we are a tourist town and we need a clean mall, and we don't want these homeless people in sight. They have just enough social welfare programs here to keep enough of the people off the mall. You understand? The homeless people, they've got enough. That's all they want. That's the real purpose, is to put up a false front that they're solving a problem on the one hand, and two, to keep them off the mall enough. That's the second thing. The capitalists, the people who own things, the top 10% who own 90% of everything, know they are the owners. They don't talk liberal, conservative. They don't talk left, right. They don't talk Democrat, Republican. They talk about their own self-interest as owners. Down here, their media, which Parenti says is their first line of defense of the capitalist system, the media has everybody arguing liberal, conservative, left, right, socialist, communist, Democrat, Republican, and everybody's forgetting they're a worker. If you're in a job over in Silicon Valley and you're making, I don't know, $200,000 a year, so that you're living well, you've got a good home and everything, you've got a surplus income and you don't know where to put it, you may think that you're headed into the investor class owner world, but you're as likely to get wiped out with your income as anybody on the bottom of the middle class in America, because the people who run the stock market manipulate the stocks in such a manner that they bid up a certain number of stocks. Marginal investors, like some employee from Silicon Valley with some surplus income, buys one of these stocks that they bid up, like Netscape. You know, this Netscape recently went up about 190% after it was first sold. They bid it up, people buy into it, it later goes down and never recovers. And the story is never told about the numbers of marginal middle-class investors lopped off at the top when the market goes down 160 points. It's just, oh, they announced the unemployment rate and the market dropped. We can't figure it out yet. It's bullshit. They knew exactly. They took advantage of the cover story they knew was coming to wipe out a few marginal investors. The point I'm trying to make is the person, even though he's making all that money, is still a working class person. But guess what? He's working politically for the interests of the corporate owners who are wiping him out at the top of the middle class. They're wiping us out at the bottom, and they're wiping us out at the top. The middle class, the working people. So my point is, don't talk liberal conservative, talk working. Talk working people. Talk about jobs. Talk about the 10 million jobs shipped overseas. Talk about, hey, what about a tax on stuff that's coming in to make up the difference in the price of the goods? You know, if it's made in Sri Lanka by a worker for 30 cents an hour, let's tax it $12 an hour that it would cost in America to make it. Why can't we have some tax like that? I know it sounds nuts, but that $12, that money is what the stock market is thriving on. Why don't we have some of it? Why don't we share it?
Because those corporations are writing the tax code.
That's right. Because as Ed Fry pointed out, and as we all know, our Congress, all of our politicians are bought and paid for by the corporations. But don't talk liberal conservative, talk worker.
Brought to you by General Electric.
Hey, when is your show, man? Wednesday. When is your show?
Oh, I do Wednesday, 10 to 12.
Okay. AM, PM.
With this energy, with this town hall, to create a teach-in in June, very much like the one that will be held Sunday at Loudon Nelson, to end the drug war. Okay? I think we have an even bigger job on our hands, because if we lose, the drug war will get worse, not better. And many other wars will be launched or expanded. The war against the internet and the war against information and the war against freedom of expression and the arts. The war against the common people, as John so eloquently put it. The ultimate powers that be are invisible to us, and we're getting chump change on the surface. Let's you and him fight, where in fact these little let's say skirmishes called elections, though important, mask the reality that there is a power elite. Dahlhoff, a prophet, UC Santa Cruz, wrote a book, Who Rules? Who Rules? Okay? The Bohemian Grove. They are the ones. The Power Elite by C. Wright Mills, written in the late of any great world religion, is brotherhood, sisterhood. Okay? That we are our brother's keepers on our planet, that we are planetary citizens, that we can't go back to 19th century solutions like nationalism. And then behind the economic critique, behind overturning corporate world rule, we have to bring the heart and the soul into the picture too. We have to bring beauty and art forward too. We have to have what religion has supplied. We have to have some kind of new spirituality, maybe that supersedes the religions of the past. Maybe like the little store here in Santa Cruz, Imagine. John Lennon's song. Imagine if there weren't these dividing lines and we were united, we had true human unity. So they're saying that we need both a Nader-like new economics that the Alliance is trying to bring to light here locally, and we'll be doing a probably town hall meeting in a month or so. Maybe you'd be interested in signing up to the Alliance. There are folks here that could take your name. We'll see you know about what the Alliance will be doing in the next month or two. A lot of things that we can do locally seem to me to be especially important to do in collaboration with the other groups in town. To include the heart side of politics, the soul of politics, to have that in our quiver along with new thinking on new economics, something that's post-capitalist, post-liberal, and certainly post-conservative. And if Peter Drucker, a famous management writer, can write a book called The Coming of the Post-Capitalist Society, if the think tank people know they're going to have to reinvent the corporation, and then it'll either be us redrawing the charters of the world corporations, as John recommended, or the corporations getting the public relations industry to come out there and sell us another bill of goods. Okay? There's a great book at Bookstore Santa Cruz titled Toxic Sludge is Good for You.
Oh, yeah.
Saying how we are basically sold a bill of goods by our TV set, the great medium of propagandizing us. And we are basically in the same spot, my friends, as those little munchkins back in Oz. Do you remember the munchkins, the little people? Yes, you do. And they didn't know they were being tricked by their television set. And all these other medias that try to channel us like we were on a fish farm or something. And they're trying to raise us up proper, like the wizard was doing with his munchkins. And so somehow we have to wake up from the dream like us.
Oh, we'll have to. We're going to be running out of oil by 2010 or before. Hooray!
Yeah.